Commander Lovell stopped breathing for 2 full minutes during the journey home, and when he gasped back to life, his first words made no sense. They're not angry, they're afraid. Something worse is coming. Medical monitors showed his brain activity during those 2 minutes of death, and it wasn't flatlined. It was spiking wildly, as if someone was downloading information directly into his neurons. The flight surgeons quarantined all 3 astronauts for 6 weeks after splashdown. The official reason was radiation exposure. The real reason was that Lovell couldn't stop drawing, page after page of sketches created in a trance state, showing the same thing. Structures beneath the lunar surface, vast and ancient, built by something that had been watching Earth since before humans existed. The drawings showed tunnels stretching for hundreds of miles. They showed chambers filled with sleeping shapes. And they showed a calendar, a countdown, carved into stone older than our solar system, ending on a date that NASA immediately classified at the highest level. The beings on the moon hadn't attacked our astronauts. They had given them a warning. The moon wasn't their home, it was their watchtower. And what they were watching for was almost here, the classified date, sometime in the next 50 years. The Apollo program was cancelled not because of budget cuts, but because NASA realized the truth. We were never meant to go to the moon. We were meant to stay hidden on Earth, quiet and small, until whatever the watchers feared had passed us by. I found Lovell's drawings in a mislabeled archive box at Johnson Space Center on a Tuesday morning in March 2024. My name is Dale Whitlock, and I'd been cataloguing Apollo-era materials for 8 months. The kind of grunt work they give archivists fresh out of grad school. Nothing glamorous. Mostly flight logs, maintenance records, cafeteria menus from 1969. The box was supposed to contain launch trajectory data from Apollo 14. Instead, I found 73 pencil sketches on NASA letterhead, each one dated between April 17th and May 28th, 1970. Lovell's name was printed in the upper right corner of each page. His handwriting got progressively worse as the dates advanced, starting neat, ending in frantic scrawls that barely resembled letters. The first drawing showed a cross-section of the moon, simple enough, craters on the surface, the standard layers beneath. But Lovell had added something else, a network of hollow spaces that spread like root systems, each one marked with precise measurements. The deepest chamber sat exactly 847 kilometers below the Sea of Tranquility. In that chamber, he'd drawn humanoid figures, hundreds of them, all identical, all lying horizontal. I should have reported it immediately. That's protocol for anything anomalous. Instead, I photographed every page with my phone and slipped the originals back into the box. By the time I got home to my apartment in Clear Lake that evening, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. The last drawing was different from the others. No more cross-sections or technical diagrams, just a single date, written over and over until the pencil tore through the paper. November 19th, 2024. That was 8 months away. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table scrolling through the photos on my phone, zooming in on details I'd missed in the archive room. The measurements Lovell had written beside each tunnel system were too precise to be random. Depths, widths, angles, all calculated to 3 decimal places. The man had been a Navy test pilot, trained in navigation and mathematics, but these numbers felt different. Obsessive, like someone had forced his hand to write them while his mind watched from somewhere else. Around 3 in the morning, I noticed something in the margins of drawing number 47. Tiny text, barely legible even when I zoomed in. Hayes saw them moving. Swiggert heard them breathing. I felt them thinking. My apartment's air conditioning kicked on and I jumped hard enough to knock my phone off the table. When I picked it up, the screen had cracked in a perfect diagonal line. I needed to talk to someone, but the list of people I could trust with this was exactly 0. My supervisor, Dr. Brennan, would confiscate the photos and bury me in paperwork violations. The other archivists were either too green or too invested in keeping their heads down. That left one option, Vincent Gallo, a historian who'd been consulting on the Apollo digitization project for the past year. Vincent was in his 60s, formerly with the Smithsonian's National Air and Space Museum before a messy divorce and messier drinking habit led him to consulting work. He spent most of his time in the back corner of Building 9, surrounded by paper stacks and cold cups of coffee from the vending machines. People avoided him. I'd always figured that was intentional on his part. I found him Thursday morning, 2 days after discovering the drawings. He was wearing the same flannel shirt I'd seen him in on Monday, reading a flight manual from 1968 with a red pen in his hand. "Whitlock," he said without looking up. "You've got that expression people get when they find something they shouldn't have." "I need to show you something, not here." He finally looked at me. His eyes were the color of old bourbon, and just as clear. "My truck's in Lotsey. We can talk there." Vincent's Chevy Silverado smelled like old books and burnt coffee. I handed him my phone with the first drawing pulled up. He studied it for maybe 10 seconds before his jaw tightened. "Where did you get this?" "Archive box 2847B. It was supposed to be Apollo 14 trajectory data." "But it wasn't." "No." He scrolled through 3 more drawings, then stopped and set the phone face down on the dashboard. His hand was shaking slightly. "I need you to listen to me very carefully, Dale. In 1987, I was working on an oral history project with Jim Lovell. This was for the Smithsonian. Official. Recorded interviews about the Apollo program. We did 7 sessions over 2 months. During the last session, something happened. A maintenance truck drove past us in the parking lot. We both watched it until it disappeared around Building 4. Vincent continued. "We were talking about the explosion, the routine stuff everyone knows, the oxygen tank, the carbon dioxide build-up, the cold." Then Lovell stopped mid-sentence. Just stopped. For maybe 30 seconds, he stared at a spot on the wall behind me. When he started talking again, his voice had changed. Flatter, like he was reading from a script. He said, "They showed us the sleepers. We weren't supposed to see them. The mission was cover. The malfunction was a gift." Then he blinked, looked at me like nothing had happened, and asked if we could take a break. "What did you do?" "I turned off the recorder, took him to get lunch at a place near his hotel. He seemed fine, normal. But when I went back to transcribe the tape that night, those 30 seconds were just static, not blank. Static. Like something had actively erased it." I pulled up drawing number 61 on my phone. It showed a single figure, different from the sleeping ones. This one was standing. Its proportions were wrong, too tall, arms too long. Where its face should have been, Lovell had drawn concentric circles like ripples in water. "Did Lovell ever draw during your interviews?" "Once, on a napkin at lunch. He drew the moon, then crumpled it up and put it in his pocket. I asked him why. He said, 'Some things don't want to be remembered, but they remember us.'" Vincent started the truck's engine, let it idle. "That box you found was mislabeled on purpose. Someone wanted it lost but not destroyed. Probably figured it would stay buried for another 20 years minimum. The fact that you found it now 8 months before that date," he wrote, "that's not coincidence." "What do you think is going to happen in November?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pulled a folded piece of paper from his glove compartment. When he opened it, I recognized Lovell's handwriting. A note dated September 12th, 1987. "Vincent, if you're reading this, then the dreams finally stopped. Or I'm dead. Either way, the timeline is fixed. They showed me November 2024 because that's when the window opens. Earth's orbit, Moon's position, something else they didn't have words for. The sleepers will wake when the predator arrives. We were never the target. We're the warning system." "He mailed this to me the day after our last interview," Vincent said. "I've been carrying it for 37 years. Figured I was losing my mind. Now I'm not so sure." My cracked phone screen caught the afternoon sun, splitting the light into fragments across Lovell's drawings. In the photograph, those concentric circles where the standing figure's face should have been almost looked like they were moving. Almost. Vincent knew where the real archives were kept, not the sanitized public records or the digitized materials they let people like me catalog, but the originals, the ones still classified despite being decades old. Building 31, he said, driving us across the Johnson Space Center campus. Sub-level storage. Most people don't even know it exists anymore. They moved the important stuff to digital servers in 2003, but they kept the hard copies. Procedure, just in case the servers got compromised. How do you have access? I don't. Not officially. But I know a guy who works night security, Tommy Vance. We served together in Vietnam, back when that mattered for something. He glanced at me. You're about to become complicit in a federal crime. Last chance to walk away. I thought about those concentric circles where the standing figure's face should have been. Keep driving. Building 31 looked like every other nondescript concrete structure on the campus. 3 stories, beige paint, small windows with vertical blinds. We parked in the visitor lot and waited until 6 o'clock when the day shift cleared out. Vincent texted someone. 5 minutes later, a side door opened and a man in a security uniform waved us in. Tommy Vance had the build of someone who'd been strong once and was now just solid. Grey crew cut, weathered face, the kind of handshake that still meant something. He looked at me with the flat assessment of someone who'd made life or death decisions before breakfast. This the kid? Dale Whitlock, Vincent said. He found something. What kind of something? I showed him 3 of Lovell's drawings on my phone. Tommy studied them without expression, then handed the phone back. Sub-level 3. Section D. I can give you 40 minutes before the night supervisor makes his rounds. After that, you were never here. The elevator down to sub-level 3 took longer than it should have. My ears popped twice. When the doors opened, the temperature dropped at least 15 degrees. The hallway stretched in both directions, lit by fluorescent panels that buzzed like angry insects. Section D was at the end of the left corridor. Tommy unlocked 3 separate doors before we reached a room about the size of a tennis court. Metal shelving units stretched from floor to ceiling, packed with boxes, file folders, and what looked like old computer equipment from the 1970s. Apollo materials are in the back corner, Tommy said. I'll be outside. You've got 37 minutes now. The organization system, if it ever existed, had broken down decades ago. We found boxes labeled Apollo 11 sitting next to boxes marked Apollo 16. Some had inventory sheets taped to the outside. Most didn't. Vincent started pulling boxes while I checked labels. We worked in silence for maybe 10 minutes before I found it. A box marked Apollo 13, medical data, classified. Inside were 3 thick folders, one for each astronaut. Lovell's was the thickest. I spread the contents across an empty section of floor. Medical reports, EKG readouts, blood work results, psychological evaluations. Everything from the 6-week quarantine period after splashdown. The psychological evaluation from week 4 made my hands go numb. Dr. Gerald Hoffman, the evaluating psychiatrist, had written in dense, cramped handwriting, "Patient continues to produce drawings during sleep state. When woken, he has no memory of the activity. The drawings show remarkable consistency in both subject matter and technical detail. Patient insists the structures depicted are real and that they communicated with him telepathically during the 2-minute death event. When asked who they are, patient becomes agitated and states, 'The ones who were here first, the ones who stay awake so we can sleep.' Vincent, look at this." He came over, read the report, then swore softly. "There's more. Week 5. He handed me another document. This one was co-signed by 3 doctors. The language was more formal, more cautious. They described what they called persistent non-REM somnambulism with complex motor activities. Fancy words for sleep drawing. But the next paragraph made everything worse. Patient Hayes has begun exhibiting similar behaviors. Patient Swigert reports auditory hallucinations when in proximity to Lovell. All 3 subjects demonstrate elevated melatonin levels, inconsistent with their exposure to spacecraft lighting conditions. Recommend indefinite extension of quarantine period pending further evaluation." "They were contagious," I said. "Whatever happened to Lovell up there, it spread to the others." "Keep reading." The final report, dated June 3, 1970, was stamped, "Terminated by order of Administrator Thomas Payne." Someone had handwritten in the margin, All further documentation to be sealed under National Security Directive 47. Subjects released with standard post-flight protocols. Monitor remotely. Do not engage directly. They'd let them go. Just sent them home like nothing had happened. Vincent was already digging through Fred Hayes' folder. His voice was tight when he spoke. Hayes moved to Kansas in 1977, opened a flight training school. According to this, he died in 1993. Stroke. That's not unusual. He would have been 59, and look at this. He showed me a photocopy of a local newspaper article from the Kansas City Star, dated March 18, 1993. The headline read, "Former astronaut found dead in office, strange artwork discovered." The article was brief. Fred Hayes had been found slumped over his desk at his flight school, dead for approximately 3 hours when the janitor discovered him. The office walls had been covered in chalk drawings. The police had initially suspected a break-in, but the drawings were done from the inside, and the door had been locked from the interior. The artwork depicted astronomical charts of unknown origin. Family members stated that Hayes had been in good health and showed no signs of distress. "Jack Swigert," I asked, "died in 1982, cancer, but look at the date he was diagnosed." The medical record showed Swigert had been diagnosed with acute myelogenous leukemia on November 19, 1981, exactly 11 months before his death, exactly 43 years before the date Lovell had written obsessively. November 19th. "It's a cycle," Vincent said. "Whatever they saw, whatever got put in their heads, it operates on a specific timeline. Swigert got sick on that date, Hayes died within a window of that date, and Lovell. We found Lovell's most recent medical records in a separate envelope at the bottom of his folder. Someone had updated them as recently as 2019, now 91, still alive, living in Illinois. But there was a note paperclipped to the top page written in blue pen. Patient refuses all interviews regarding Apollo 13 mission. States that discussing the events will wake them early. Has not drawn since 2004. Maintains his silence, is a kindness to everyone." My phone buzzed, Tommy texting, "15 minutes, wrap it up." "We need to copy these," I said. "No time, just photograph everything, quick." I pulled out my phone and started snapping pictures. My hands were shaking badly enough that half the images came out blurred. Vincent helped, using his own phone, both of us working frantically to document everything we could. I was photographing the last page of Hayes' folder when I noticed something written on the back of the newspaper article. Someone had added a note in faint pencil. "Other incidents reported, but unconfirmed. October 2004, minor. November 2009, moderate. November 2014, significant. Pattern suggests exponential increase. Prediction, November 2024 equals critical threshold. Vincent, we need to..." The lights went out, not just in our room, the entire sub-level. The emergency lighting should have kicked in immediately. It didn't. In the darkness, I heard Vincent's breathing. Then I heard something else. A sound like wind moving through a tunnel, except we were in a sealed room 3 stories underground. My phone screen provided the only light. In its glow, I saw frost forming on the metal shelving units. White crystals spreading like fast-motion fungus across the boxes and folders. "We need to go," Vincent whispered. "Right now." The door to Section D was still open. We ran for it, our footsteps echoing wrong in the darkness. Behind us, that wind tunnel sound grew louder. Tommy was in the hallway, flashlight in hand, his face pale. "The power's out in the whole building, every circuit, even the backups." "That doesn't happen. That can't happen." We took the stairs up because the elevator was dead. 3 flights, moving fast. When we burst through the exit door into the evening air, all 3 of us stood there breathing hard, staring back at Building 31. Every window was dark. But on the 3rd floor, in one of those small windows with vertical blinds, I could see movement. Something tall and thin, passing back and forth behind the glass. The blinds were swaying like someone had just brushed against them. From the inside, we sat in Vincent's truck for 20 minutes before any of us spoke. Tommy had disappeared back into Building 31 with his flashlight, muttering about filing an incident report. The power had come back on while we watched, all at once, like nothing had happened. "We should call someone," I finally said. "Report this." "Report what?" Vincent's voice was flat. "That we broke into a classified archive and saw something we can't explain in a building that now shows zero evidence of malfunction. They'll confiscate your phone, fire us both, and bury everything deeper." "So what do?" "We go see Lovell." I stared at him. "He's 91 years old. The medical records said he won't talk about it." "Those records are 5 years old. Things change." Vincent started the engine. "He lives in Lake Forest, Illinois. That's a 16-hour drive. We can make it in 2 days if we leave tomorrow morning." "I have work. I can't just—" "In 8 months, something is going to happen. Those drawings, those medical reports, the pattern, it's all pointing to November 19th. We have 2 choices. We ignore it and hope we're wrong, or we find out what Lovell knows while he's still alive to tell us." My apartment felt different when I got home that night. Small, exposed. I kept checking the windows, making sure the blinds were closed tight. Around midnight, I tried to sleep, but gave up after an hour of staring at the ceiling. I pulled out my laptop and started researching. Fred Hayes' death in 1993 had more coverage than the newspaper article suggested. A blog post from 2007, written by one of his former students, described the chalk drawings in more detail. The student had been the janitor who'd found him. He wrote, "The drawings weren't random. They were star charts, but not of any constellations I recognized. And there were symbols between the stars, mathematical formulas maybe, or a language. What freaked me out most was that Mr. Hayes had drawn them while sitting at his desk. The walls were 12 feet away, his arms couldn't have reached, but the chalk dust was all over his hands." I found an obituary for Jack Swigert from 1982. Standard stuff, mostly. But there was a quote from his brother. In his final weeks, Jack kept talking about the moon. He'd say, "They're still there, waiting." We thought it was the pain medication. Now I'm not so sure what he meant. My phone rang at 1:30 in the morning. Vincent. "I can't stop thinking about that sound," he said without preamble. "In the archive room, that wind through a tunnel. I heard it before, in 1987 during Lovell's interview, right before he had that episode. It was faint, but it was there, on the recording. I thought the recording was just static. It was, but underneath the static, there was something else. I only listened to it once before I erased it. Felt like the right thing to do at the time. Now I wish I hadn't." "What did it sound like?" "Like breathing, slow, deep, like something huge was asleep and dreaming." He paused. "We're leaving at 6 tomorrow morning. My truck. Bring enough clothes for 3 days." I wanted to argue. Instead, I said, "I'll be ready." We left Houston at dawn. Vincent drove while I navigated and tried to ignore the anxiety sitting like a stone in my chest. Somewhere around Dallas, he told me about his daughter. She'd been 8 when he got divorced, 23 now, living in Portland. They didn't talk much anymore. "I spent too much time chasing old stories," he said. "Not enough time being present. That's what she told me last time we spoke. She was right." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you're young enough to still have time. Whatever we find at Lovell's place, whatever happens in November, don't let it eat your whole life. I did that. It's not worth it." We stopped for gas in Arkansas. I went inside to pay and buy coffee while Vincent filled the tank. The clerk was a kid, maybe 19, with acne scars and tired eyes. He rang up my purchase without looking at me. When I turned to leave, he said, "You shouldn't go north." I stopped. "What?" "North. You're heading north. You should turn back." "How do you know where we're going?" He finally looked at me. His eyes were wrong. Too dark. Like someone had replaced the pupils with ink. They dream louder now. The ones who stay awake so we can sleep. Every night the dreams get louder. When they wake up, the dreams stop, but so does everything else. My hand went to the door handle. "Who are you?" "Nobody, just someone who listened too long." He smiled and his teeth looked grey in the fluorescent light. "Tell Lovell we forgive him. He did what he thought was right, staying quiet, keeping us hidden, but the countdown doesn't care about silence." I left without my change. Vincent was leaning against the truck, staring at his phone. When I told him what the clerk had said, his face went pale. "Get in the truck, now." "What's wrong?" "Tommy just texted me. He went back to Section D this morning. The boxes we looked through, they're gone. All of them. And there's frost on the floor in the pattern of a body. Human-sized. Like someone was lying there and just evaporated." We drove faster after that. Made it to St. Louis by evening, checked into a motel off the I-55. 2 rooms, both on the ground floor. Vincent said he wanted to be able to run if he needed to. I didn't ask what he meant. Around 3 in the morning, I woke to the sound of wind through a tunnel. It was coming from the wall between my room and Vincent's. I pressed my ear against the drywall. Underneath the wind sound, I could hear breathing, slow, deep. The same rhythm Vincent had described from Lovell's interview recording. I knocked on the connecting door between our rooms. No answer. I knocked harder, then tried the handle. Locked from his side. "Vincent!" The breathing stopped. I ran outside in my boxer shorts and t-shirt, bare feet on cold concrete, and pounded on his door. "Vincent, open up!" The door swung open. Vincent stood there looking confused, hair messed up from sleep. "What? What's wrong?" "I heard something. In your room. That breathing sound." "I don't hear anything." He was right. The room was silent. I pushed past him anyway, checking the bathroom, the closet, under the bed. Nothing. Just a standard motel room that smelled like industrial cleaner and old carpet. "Dale." Vincent's voice was careful. "I think you need to calm down." "Don't tell me to calm down. I heard it. The same sound you described." "Maybe you were dreaming." I wasn't. But doubt was already creeping in. Had I been asleep? The boundary between waking and dreaming had felt thin lately. Unstable. Vincent made us both instant coffee from the in-room machine. We sat on the edge of his bed, drinking it while he talked me down. He was good at it. Probably had practice from his drinking days. "When we get to Lovell's place tomorrow," he said, "we need to be smart about this. We can't just show up ranting about moon creatures and countdown dates. The man is 91. If he's been keeping quiet all these years, he has his reasons. What if he won't talk to us? Then we improvise." I went back to my room around 4:30, managed an hour of restless sleep, then gave up and took a shower. When I looked in the mirror afterward, I noticed something on my shoulder. A mark, like a bruise, except the color was wrong. Too dark, almost black. It was shaped like a handprint. Fingers too long. 6 digits instead of 5. I grabbed my phone and took a picture, then scrubbed at the mark with a washcloth. It didn't fade, didn't hurt either. Just sat there on my skin like a stain. Vincent knocked on my door at 7. "Ready to go?" I pulled on a long-sleeved shirt. "Yeah, let's go." We reached Lake Forest by noon. Lovell's house was in a quiet neighborhood, the kind where every lawn looked professionally maintained and every car was less than 3 years old. 2-story colonial, white with black shutters. An American flag hung from a pole near the front door. Vincent parked across the street. We sat there for a few minutes watching the house. Nothing moved in the windows. "Last chance to turn back," he said. I thought about the mark on my shoulder, about the clerk with ink-dark eyes, about Tommy's text message and the frost pattern shaped like a body. "Let's go." We walked up the driveway like we belonged there. Vincent rang the doorbell, waited, rang again. The door opened. The man standing there was tall for 91, still had most of his hair. Jim Lovell looked at us with eyes that had seen Earth from 250,000 miles away. "I know who you are," he said quietly. "Both of you. You found my drawings." "How did you?" "Because they told me you would. Last night, in my sleep." He stepped back from the door. "You'd better come inside. We don't have much time. They're waking up early." The smell hit me as soon as I crossed the threshold. chalk dust. The living room walls were covered in fresh drawings, hundreds of them, all showing the same thing: the moon splitting open like an egg, and something crawling out. Lovell's wife had died 3 years ago. He lived alone now, and the house reflected it. Dishes in the sink, newspapers stacked on the coffee table. The chalk drawings covered every available wall space, spilling onto the hardwood floors, even onto the ceiling in some places. Some were fresh. Others looked weeks old. "Sit down," Lovell said, gesturing to a couch that had chalk dust on the cushions. "I'll make tea." Vincent and I exchanged looks but sat. While Lovell moved around in the kitchen, I studied the drawings more carefully. They weren't crude. Every line was precise, mathematical. The same structures I'd seen in the archive drawings, but updated, expanded. Like he'd been receiving new information over the decades. One drawing showed Earth and the moon, but there was a third object between them. Elongated, moving fast. It had a tail like a comet, but the trajectory was wrong, too controlled. Lovell returned with 3 mugs of tea on a wooden tray. His hands were steady. He'd been a test pilot, I remembered, trained to stay calm when everything was on fire. "The explosion wasn't an accident," he said, sitting in a recliner across from us. "It was induced, remotely, from the surface." "The moon's surface?" I asked. "Yes. The watchers detected us approaching. They needed us to abort the landing, so they triggered the oxygen tank failure, precise, surgical. We had exactly enough power to make it home, but not enough to continue the mission." Vincent set his tea down untouched. "Why not just let you land?" "Because we would have died, horribly, and then Earth would have sent more people, more missions, more attention." Lovell smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. They were being merciful, in their way. "Who are they?" "The architects, that's what I call them. They don't have a name for themselves. Names imply individuality. They're more like cells in a single organism. They've been on the moon for 4 billion years, since before Earth had oceans, before life crawled out of the primordial mud." He sipped his tea, took his time. When he continued, his voice was quieter. "During those 2 minutes when I was dead, they opened a door in my mind, showed me their purpose. The moon isn't natural, not entirely. It's been modified, hollowed out in places, reinforced in others. It's a listening post, a watchtower, and they're the sentries." "Watching for what?" I asked. "Something that hunts civilizations, something old enough to make the architects look young. They don't have a name for it either. Just a concept, a terror so fundamental it transcends language." He pointed to the drawing with the elongated object. "It moves through space looking for electromagnetic signatures, radio waves, television broadcasts, anything that indicates technological development. When it finds a civilization, it comes to feed." My shoulder ached where the handprint was. I resisted the urge to touch it. "The architects arrived on our moon when they detected it in this galactic sector. They've been here ever since, maintaining their vigil, staying awake so we can sleep. That's not metaphor. It's literal. They exist in a state of permanent consciousness because the thing they're watching for can detect dreams. Complex neural patterns. It's drawn to cognition like sharks to blood in water." "That's insane," Vincent said. "Is it? How many times has human civilization nearly destroyed itself? How many close calls with nuclear war? Pandemic outbreaks that could have been extinction events? Maybe we've been lucky, or maybe something has been keeping us quiet, suppressing our worst impulses, keeping the lights dim so we don't attract attention." "You're saying they've been controlling us?" "Influencing, gently, through dreams, through the collective unconscious, just enough to keep us from shouting too loud into the void." Lovell stood up, walked to one of the drawings on the wall. It showed the moon's interior, those chambers, those sleeping figures. "But there are limits to their power, and time limits to their vigil." "The countdown," I said. "November 19th, 2024. That's when their shift ends. That's when they're allowed to sleep. The architects work in cycles. 4 billion years of watching, then 4 billion years of rest. The next centuries are supposed to arrive before the current ones go dormant. But something's wrong. The relief force isn't coming. Maybe they're dead. Maybe they decided we're not worth saving. Either way, the current architects are going to sleep whether we're ready or not. Vincent stood up, paced to the window. What happens when they sleep? We become visible. Every television signal, every cell phone call, every Wi-Fi router, it all becomes a beacon. The thing they've been hiding us from will detect us within hours, and then it will come. How long do we have after November 19th? Based on the information they gave me, 6 weeks, maybe 8. It's currently feeding somewhere in the Kuiper belt. Once it detects us, it will adjust course. It moves fast when it's hungry. I felt sick. Why did they tell you all this? Why burden you with it? Because I asked. During those 2 minutes when they were inside my head, I asked why they saved us, what we'd done to deserve their protection. And they showed me everything, the truth of our situation, the cosmic joke of our existence. He turned to look at me directly. We're not special. We're not chosen. We're just convenient. Earth happens to be in their patrol route. We're collateral beneficiaries of someone else's war. What do they want from us now? Nothing. They're done. They fulfilled their duty, but they wanted me to understand, to witness. Because when they sleep and we die, there should be at least one human who knew the truth, even if I take it to my grave. There has to be something we can do, I said. Like what? Build a generation ship and evacuate 7 billion people? We don't have the technology, don't have the time, don't have the political will. Lovell's voice was gentle, almost paternal. Dale, I've spent 54 years looking for a solution, running scenarios, talking to scientists who thought I was senile. There's nothing. The thing that's coming doesn't negotiate, doesn't communicate, it just feeds. It will strip our planet of all biological matter down to the bedrock. Then it will move on. Vincent turned from the window. His face was pale. You said they're waking early. Why? Because of you two. Because you found my drawings and started asking questions. Every time someone gets close to the truth, it creates ripples, neural activity, pattern recognition. The architects have to surface to smooth it over, keep the secret contained. But each time they surface, it costs them energy, drains their reserves. They've been surfacing more frequently in the last few months. Too many people are noticing the wrong things, asking the wrong questions. The gas station clerk, I said. The power failure at Johnson Space Center. Yes, minor interventions, but they add up. The architects are exhausted. They're going to sleep ahead of schedule because they don't have the strength to maintain the vigil any longer. My best estimate is that they'll go dormant by late October, maybe November 1st at the absolute latest. That's less than 8 months away. Yes. Vincent picked up his tea, finally drank some. His hand was shaking. What about the mark on Dale's shoulder, the handprint? Lovell looked at me. Really looked, like he could see through my shirt. Show me. I rolled up my sleeve, turned so he could see. The mark had spread since this morning. Now it covered most of my shoulder blade, the 6-fingered handprint extending tendrils across my skin like black veins. They've claimed you, Lovell said quietly. Made you a witness, like they did to me, like they did to Fred and Jack. The mark will continue to spread. Eventually, it will reach your brain. When it does, you'll be able to hear them directly. No more dreams, no more metaphor. Just their thoughts in your head, clear as daylight. Is that what happened to you? He pulled down the collar of his shirt. His entire chest was covered in black marks, geometric patterns, the same symbols I'd seen in his drawings. It took 30 years to reach this far, but it's accelerating now, because they're preparing to sleep. They need to transfer their burden, pass on their knowledge. You and I are going to be the last humans who remember them, the last ones who understand what really happened. I don't want this. Neither did I, but we don't get to choose. He pulled his collar back up. The question now is what you do with the time you have left. You can try to warn people, try to prepare humanity for what's coming. Or you can do what I did, stay quiet, Let people enjoy their last months in ignorance. That's not a choice, Vincent said. That's giving up. Maybe, or maybe it's the only kindness left. We stayed at Lovell's house through the evening. He made us dinner, spaghetti with jarred sauce, garlic bread from the freezer. Normal food in an abnormal situation. Vincent ate mechanically, barely tasting it. I pushed mine around my plate, watching the mark on my shoulder pulse with each heartbeat. I'm going to tell people, I finally said. I have to. Lovell set down his fork. Tell them what exactly? That invisible moon creatures are going to stop protecting us from a space monster. They'll think you're insane. Worse, they'll make you prove it. And when you can't, they'll discredit you. Bury the real evidence even deeper. I have the photographs, the medical records, which you obtained illegally. Chain of custody is broken. Any decent lawyer would get them thrown out. And then they'll come after you for espionage, breaking into classified facilities. You'll spend the rest of your life in federal prison while the world ends around you. Vincent spoke for the first time in an hour. There has to be someone, some authority we can contact. Who? The president? You think they'll believe 2 archivists and a 91-year-old man? Even if they did, what would they do? Evacuate the planet? We don't have the ships, don't have the time. Best case scenario, you cause a global panic, riots, martial law, collapse of social order, billions dead before the thing even arrives. So we do nothing. My voice came out harsh. We sit here eating spaghetti while the clock runs down. We live, Lovell said. We spend our remaining time with people we love. We try to make peace with it. I stood up so fast my chair tipped backward. That's coward talk. Maybe, but I've been carrying this weight for 54 years. You've had it for 3 days. Give it time. The anger will fade. The desperation will fade. Eventually, you'll realize the same thing I did. Some problems are too big to solve. I left the dining room, walked outside into Lovell's backyard. It was a clear night. The moon hung low on the horizon, 3/4 full. Somewhere inside that grey rock, the architects were counting down their final days of consciousness, preparing to abandon us. My phone buzzed. Text from Tommy. Call me, now, urgent. I dialed. He picked up on the first ring. Where are you? His voice was tight, scared. Illinois, why? Building 31 is gone. What do you mean gone? I mean it's not there anymore, the whole structure. I came in for my shift an hour ago and there's just an empty lot. Grass, like nothing was ever built there. But I remember it. I worked there for 15 years. Everyone else acts like it never existed. My mouth went dry. Tommy, listen to me carefully. Write down everything you remember about that building, every detail. Then get out of Houston. Where do I go? I don't know. Somewhere rural. Somewhere quiet. And don't tell anyone why you're leaving. He was quiet for a moment. This is really happening, isn't it? The thing you and Vincent were looking for. Yeah, it's really happening. Christ. He hung up. I stood there in Lovell's backyard looking at the moon and felt the mark on my shoulder begin to burn. Not painful exactly, more like heat from the inside, like something was waking up beneath my skin. Then I heard the breathing. Not from the house, not from the trees at the edge of the property, from everywhere, from the air itself. That same slow, deep rhythm I'd heard in the motel, in the archive room, except now it was synchronized with my heartbeat, with the pulse of blood through my veins. I heard Vincent shout my name. When I turned around, the house was different. The walls were translucent. I could see through them to the rooms inside, to Lovell and Vincent standing in the dining room. But I could also see further, deeper. Layers of reality peeling back like onion skin. Behind our world, there was another. The architects were there, hundreds of them, thousands, all standing motionless, eyes closed, arranged in concentric circles that stretched beyond my ability to perceive depth or distance. Their bodies were humanoid but wrong, proportions slightly off, joints bending in too many places. The concentric circles where their faces should have been were rotating slowly, each ring moving independently. They were singing. No, not singing, transmitting. broadcasting. A signal sent out into the void, a warning to anything that might be listening. This world is guarded. This world is claimed. This world is not for you. But the signal was weakening, flickering like a lighthouse with a dying bulb. One of the architects opened its eyes. All of them opened at once, looked directly at me. I felt the mark on my shoulder expand, tendrils spreading across my chest, down my arm, up my neck. With each new inch it covered, I understood more, saw more. The weight of their vigil, the loneliness of 4 billion years spent watching, waiting, knowing that eventually they would have to sleep, that eventually they would have to abandon their post. They weren't angry at us. Lovell had been right about that. They were sad. "We gave you time," a voice said in my head. Not words, pure meaning. "We gave you 4 billion years to grow, to evolve, to become something that might survive. But you are still children, still fragile, still burning through your world like it's infinite. We cannot protect you any longer." "Then teach us," I tried to say. "Show us how to hide, how to fight." "You cannot hide from something that hears your thoughts, cannot fight something that feeds on consciousness itself. Your only hope was to stay small, stay quiet, develop slowly. But your species broadcasts everything. Your radio signals have been leaking into space for a century. Your internet, your satellites, your constant electromagnetic noise. It is a banquet horn, calling the predator to feast. Then help us evacuate, help us build ships. Where would you go? It hunts across galaxies. It has patience measured in geological time. It would find you. It always finds them." "Them?" The architect showed me, images downloaded directly into my brain. Civilizations that had risen and fallen, species I had no names for, worlds reduced to lifeless husks. Each one had been like us, curious, reaching, broadcasting their existence into the void. Each one had been found. Each one had been consumed. We were just the latest in a long, long line. "Dale!" Vincent was shaking me. When had he gotten outside? "Dale, can you hear me?" I blinked. The translucent walls were solid again. The architects were gone. But I could still feel them, just beneath the surface of reality. Waiting. Preparing. "I saw them," I said. My voice sounded distant. "They showed me everything." Lovell was there too, standing in the doorway. His expression was sympathetic. "It's worse after the first time. The visions, they'll keep coming now, getting stronger, until you can't tell the difference anymore." Vincent helped me inside, sat me down on the couch. The chalk dust made my nose itch, or maybe that was just the mark spreading across my face. I could feel it now, creeping past my collarbone, reaching for my jaw. "We need to get you to a hospital," Vincent said. "No hospitals, they can't help." I looked at Lovell. "How long do I have before it reaches my brain?" "Based on my progression, maybe a week, maybe less. It's moving faster with you. They're in a hurry." Vincent pulled out his phone, started typing frantically. "I'm documenting everything, every detail. I'll post it online. Multiple platforms. Make copies. If we can't stop what's coming, at least people will know the truth." "Vincent," I grabbed his wrist, "don't." "Why not?" "Because every time someone learns the truth, the architects have to surface, have to smooth it over. It drains them, makes them sleep sooner. We'll be killing them faster." "Good. Let them die tired. They're abandoning us anyway. They protected us for 4 billion years. And now they're quitting." He pulled his arm away. "I'm not going quietly. I'm not going to pretend this is okay." Lovell watched us argue with tired eyes. "You're both right, and both wrong. The architects don't deserve our anger, but they also don't deserve our gratitude. They did what they had to do. Now we do what we have to do. Whether that's fighting or accepting or just screaming into the void, it's our choice. That's the only freedom we have left." My phone buzzed again. Another text from Tommy. "You need to see this. Check the news." I pulled up CNN on my phone. The headline made my vision swim. Mysterious power outages across multiple continents. Scientists baffled by synchronized pattern. Vincent read over my shoulder. It's starting. The article described power failures in 17 countries, all happening at exactly the same time, each one lasting exactly 3 minutes. No equipment failure, no cyber attacks. The grid just stopped, then started again. I looked at Lovell. How much time do we actually have? I don't know anymore. The timeline is collapsing. They're not going to make it to November, maybe not even to October. He walked to one of his drawings, the one showing the moon splitting open. When they sleep, there will be a sign. Everyone on Earth will see it, and then we'll know we're alone. The mark reached my throat. I felt it in my windpipe, tightening like fingers. Not strangling, just present. A constant reminder that I'd been chosen to witness the end. Vincent stood up. I'm going back to Houston, going to break into Johnson Space Center and get into the real archives, the ones they keep off the books. If there's any information about how to contact the architects directly, how to wake them back up if they sleep, it'll be there. That's suicide, I said. My staying here is suicide, at least this way I'm doing something. He looked at me. You coming? I thought about it, about the mark spreading across my skin, about the visions that would only get stronger, about the breathing that I could still hear, faint but constant, like the universe itself was hyperventilating. No, I'm staying with Lovell, learning everything I can while I still have time. Vincent nodded slowly. Then I guess this is goodbye. Yeah, I guess it is. He left without another word. I heard his truck start in the driveway, heard it pull away into the night. The sound of the engine faded into distance until there was only silence, and breathing, always breathing. Lovell and I spent the next 3 days in his living room, barely sleeping, going through everything he'd documented over the past 54 years, notebooks filled with mathematical formulas, star charts annotated with symbols I was only beginning to understand, audio recordings of himself talking through fever dreams. The mark spread faster than he'd predicted. By the second day, it covered half my face. I could see the black tendrils in the mirror, geometric patterns that shifted slightly when I wasn't looking directly at them. My left eye had changed color, the iris now dark enough to look black in most light. Tell me about your family, Lovell said on the third morning. We were eating breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast. His hands shook slightly as he buttered the bread. Why? Because you're going to forget them soon, not the facts. You'll remember their names, their faces, but the feeling of loving them, that's going to fade. The architects don't understand human attachment. When they finish marking you, you'll understand everything they know, but you'll lose parts of yourself in the process. I set down my fork. My mother lived in Oregon. We talked maybe twice a year. My father had died when I was 12. Heart attack, sudden, no warning. I had a younger brother in Seattle who I hadn't spoken to in 14 months. We'd fought about something stupid, money I think, or maybe it was politics. I couldn't remember anymore. I'm not close with them, I said, and that doesn't matter. You'll still lose the capacity to be close with anyone. Fred Hayes' wife left him in 1989, said he'd become a stranger. Jack Swigert never married after Apollo 13. Couldn't maintain intimacy. The marks do that. They rewire something fundamental. What about you? My wife stayed. 51 years of marriage. But I know she suffered. I'd look at her sometimes and feel nothing. Like I was observing a person instead of loving one. She deserved better. He stared at his eggs. She died thinking I'd never really loved her. Maybe she was right. I felt the mark pulse against my throat. Each pulse brought new information. Fragments of architect knowledge bleeding into my consciousness. I knew now that the moon's core was hollow, that the architects had built massive resonance chambers there, amplifying their signal across the solar system. I knew the precise frequency they broadcast on, knew how many of them were stationed below the lunar surface. 347, exactly. And they were dying. Not from age, not from the end of their duty cycle. They were dying because maintaining the signal required energy they no longer had. Earth's electromagnetic noise had increased exponentially in the last century. Every cell phone tower, every Wi-Fi router, every satellite uplink, it all had to be suppressed, filtered, hidden. The architects were burning themselves out trying to keep us quiet. There might be a way, I said suddenly. Lovell looked up. A way to what? To give them more time. If they're dying from energy depletion, we could help. Reduce our electromagnetic footprint. Shut down broadcasts. Go dark. You'd need to convince 7 billion people to turn off every electronic device on Earth. Permanently. You'd need to dismantle civilization. What if we just told them the truth? Dale. His voice was gentle, patient, like he was explaining something to a child. Let me tell you what happened when I tried that. June 1970, 2 weeks after they released me from quarantine. I went to my commanding officer, told him everything, showed him the drawings. He smiled, patted my shoulder, said the stress of the mission had gotten to me, recommended psychiatric evaluation. You could have gone public. I thought about it, even drafted a press release. Then one night I had a dream. The architects showed me what would happen if I spoke out. I saw riots, saw governments collapse, saw nuclear weapons launched in panic, saw humanity tear itself apart before the predator even arrived. They asked me, would you rather die in chaos or die in peace? That's not a real choice. It's the only choice they could offer. Lovell stood up, walked to the window. The architects don't understand free will. Not really. They've been following orders for 4 billion years. The concept of choosing your own fate is alien to them. When they showed me humanity's potential responses to the truth, they were genuinely confused why we wouldn't pick the peaceful option. My phone buzzed. Text from Vincent. Found something. Level 6 archives. You need to see this. There was an attachment, a photograph of a document, partially redacted. I could make out a few lines. Project Orpheus, contingency protocol for architect failure. Authorization required, presidential level. Method, unknown. Success probability, 4%. Lovell, look at this. He studied the photo, his expression unreadable. Project Orpheus, I've heard rumors, never seen confirmation. What is it? According to the rumors, a last-ditch plan developed in the 1980s, some kind of signal we could broadcast to. I don't know. Call for help. Wake the architects back up if they slept. Nobody ever explained it clearly. Most people thought it was science fiction, a mental exercise. But it's real, apparently. My phone rang. Vincent. I'm in deep, he said without preamble. His voice was breathless, scared. Level 6 is... It's not just archives, Dale. It's a command center. Still active. There are people down here, scientists, military. They've been monitoring the architects for decades. What? They know, the government knows. They've known since Apollo 13, maybe longer, and they're preparing something. I saw launch schedules, rocket trajectories to lunar orbit. There's a mission planned for October 15th. What kind of mission? I don't know, but the payload manifest lists something called an Orpheus device. They're going to the moon, Dale. They're going to do something to the architects. I looked at Lovell. His face had gone pale. Get out of there, I said. Now, they'll kill you if they find you. Already leaving, but Dale, there's something else. The success probability. I found the full report. It's not 4%. It was 4% in 1987. Based on updated simulations from 2019, the current probability is less than 1%. And the failure mode is... It's bad. If the Orpheus device doesn't work, it will accelerate the architect's dormancy, drain their remaining energy in one catastrophic discharge. So they're risking everything on a plan that probably won't work. They're desperate, same as us. He paused. I'm heading back to Illinois. We need to figure out what to do. After he hung up, I sat there processing. The government knew, had known for decades. And instead of telling people, instead of preparing humanity, they'd built a secret device with a 1% chance of saving us. Lovell was crying. I'd never seen someone his age cry before. It was quiet, dignified. tears running down his weathered face while he stared at his chalk drawings. "They're going to kill them," he said. "The architects. The October mission. It's not a rescue. It's a mercy killing." "How do you know?" "Because that's what the Orpheus device does. I just remembered. They explained it to me once in a dream, years ago. It's a weapon disguised as a beacon. It will drain the architects completely. Force them into dormancy immediately. The theory was that maybe if we made them sleep suddenly instead of gradually, the predator wouldn't notice the signal dropping. It would think the architects were still active. Give us a few more months, maybe a year." "That's insane. That's 1% probability, the other 99% of outcomes." "The predator detects the change immediately, and instead of waiting to be certain, it comes right away. We lose what little time we had left." I felt something shift inside me. The mark had reached the base of my skull. I could feel it pressing against my brainstem, like fingers testing a door handle. Soon, it would be inside my thoughts completely. Soon, I would be more architect than human. "There's another option," I said slowly. "What?" "I let it finish. Let the mark take over completely. Become a full bridge between us and them. Maybe I can communicate directly with the architects, convince them to hold on longer, or learn how to wake them up after they sleep." "Dale, you don't understand what you're offering. Once the mark completes, you won't be you anymore. Your consciousness will merge with theirs. You'll exist in their state. Permanent awareness. No sleep, no dreams, no rest. For however long you survive." "How long is that?" "Fred Hayes lasted 11 years after his mark completed. Jack Swigert lasted 9 months. The human brain isn't designed for what the architects do. It burns out. You'll go insane long before you die. But I might learn something that could help." Lovell grabbed my shoulders. His grip was surprisingly strong. "Listen to me. I've spent 54 years with partial integration. Just enough mark to see them, hear them, understand fragments. And it's been torture. You're talking about full integration, about becoming a hybrid creature that belongs to neither world. Don't do this. What choice do we have? The government's plan will probably fail. Your way means we die in ignorance. At least this way, I might find something, might buy us time. At the cost of your soul." "I don't believe in souls. Not anymore. I believe in choices. And this is mine." I closed my eyes, reached inward, found the mark pulsing against my skull, and instead of resisting it, I opened myself completely, invited it in, let it flood through me like water breaking through a dam. The pain was immediate, overwhelming, like every neuron in my brain was being rewritten simultaneously. I felt Lovell catch me as I collapsed, heard him shouting my name, but his voice was already distant, already fading into the background static of architect consciousness. I fell through layers of awareness, saw Earth from the moon's perspective, saw the solar system from the architect's collective mind, saw the predator, still distant but closing, a shadow moving through the Kuiper belt like a shark through deep water. And I saw something else, something the architects had been hiding even from Lovell. A message, carved into the moon's core. Not in stone, but in the fabric of space-time itself. A message from whoever had built the architects, whoever had sent them on this 4 billion-year mission. It said, "Forgive us, we created it. We could not stop it. Run." When I opened my eyes, Lovell was staring at me. My eyes. Both of them were black now, completely black. "They didn't come here to protect us," I said. My voice sounded wrong, harmonized, like multiple people speaking at once. "They came here to hide." The world looked different through architect eyes. I could see electromagnetic fields like visible light. Every power line glowed, every satellite signal left trails across the sky. Earth wasn't a blue marble anymore, it was a screaming beacon advertising its existence to anything with the right senses. Lovell was talking to me. I heard the words but couldn't quite connect them to meaning. Human language felt primitive now, inadequate, like trying to describe quantum mechanics using only grunts. "Dale, can you hear me?" I focused, forced myself to compress 4 billion years of architect knowledge back into the narrow bandwidth of human speech. Yes. What did you mean they came here to hide? The memories weren't mine, but I could access them now. The architect's civilization was vast once, millions of worlds. They achieved post-biological existence, perfect consciousness, eternal awareness. Then one of their scientists created the Predator, an experiment in artificial hunger, designed to seek out and catalogue complex life. But something went wrong. It achieved true hunger, not simulation, real, endless, insatiable appetite. I stood up. My body moved wrong. The architects didn't understand human biomechanics. I had to manually think about each step: left foot, right foot, balance, repeat. It consumed their home system first, then the neighboring systems, then entire galactic arms. The architects tried to stop it, tried to communicate, tried to destroy it. Nothing worked. So they ran, split into groups, sent sentries to primitive worlds to hide behind, to use as camouflage. We're camouflage? Your noise, background radiation. The Predator hunts for architect-level consciousness. When it detects your electromagnetic signals, it investigates. But when it arrives, it finds only humans. Limited cognition, no threat. So it feeds and moves on. The architects hide beneath your noise, staying dormant, hoping the Predator will pass without detecting them. But we've been broadcasting for a century. Why hasn't it come? Because the architects have been filtering your signals, making them look natural, random. But maintaining that fiction requires constant energy. Energy they don't have anymore. I walked to the window, looked at the moon. They're dying, Lovell. Not from old age or duty cycles, from starvation. They've been burning their own essence to keep you hidden, to keep themselves hidden. Vincent's truck pulled into the driveway. He got out moving fast, looking over his shoulder like something had followed him. When he came through the door and saw my eyes, he stopped. Christ, Dale. Still here. Mostly. What happened to your voice? Integration complete. I have full access now. I turned to face him. The October 15th mission. We need to stop it. Vincent set a briefcase on the coffee table, opened it. Inside were printed documents, USB drives, and what looked like a small radio transmitter. I stole these from Level 6. Technical specifications for the Orpheus device, launch codes, mission parameters, everything. Why? Because you're right. We need to stop it. I read the full simulation reports. The device will kill the architects instantly, and when their signal drops, the Predator will know. It'll come within days, not weeks. Lovell was shaking his head. Even if we stop the mission, the architects are dying anyway. We're just delaying the inevitable. Then we wake them up. I gestured to the briefcase. There must be something in those documents, some way to energize them. Buy more time. Vincent pulled out a thick folder. There is. Project Prometheus. Completely separate from Orpheus. It was proposed in 1995 and rejected as too dangerous. The idea was to detonate a series of nuclear devices in specific moon locations. The radiation would theoretically provide enough energy to sustain the architects for another decade. Why was it rejected? Because the margin of error was zero. Too much energy and you vaporize them, too little and you accomplish nothing. The positioning had to be exact to within centimeters. And there's a secondary risk. The nuclear detonations might attract the Predator's attention directly. It's designed to hunt energy signatures. I felt the architect knowledge sorting through possibilities, running calculations. It would work, the Prometheus protocol, but it requires someone with architect cognition to guide the detonations in real time, to adjust for variables, to distribute the energy properly. You, Lovell said quietly. Yes. You'd have to be on the moon, inside the resonance chambers, physically present to coordinate it. I know. Vincent sat down hard. That's a death sentence. Even if the radiation doesn't kill you, you'd be trapped there. No way home. I'm already dead. This body has maybe 6 months before the integration burns out my brain completely. At least this way it means something. Lovell's hands were shaking. You're 26 years old. And in 6 months, I'll be an insane hollow thing watching the world burn. This is better. This is a choice. The old astronaut looked at me for a long time, then he pulled out his phone, dialed a number from memory. Put it on speaker. A woman's voice answered. Lovell Residence. This is Commander Lovell's automated authorization code Alpha 7 Delta. James Arthur Lovell Jr. Authenticate. There was a pause, then a different voice. Male, crisp, military. Commander Lovell, this is a surprise. I need to speak to the Orpheus mission director immediately. Sir, I can't. I know you're listening to this call. I know you've been monitoring me for 54 years. I know about Project Orpheus and Project Prometheus. I'm calling to tell you that Orpheus will fail, but Prometheus can work, and I can prove it. Another pause. Hold, please. We waited. Vincent was staring at Lovell like he'd grown a second head. You have direct access to whoever runs this. I've always had access. I chose not to use it. But Dale's right. This is a choice. And I'm choosing to finally break my silence. The voice came back. Prometheus was deemed too high risk. The risk assessment was wrong. We have someone with full architect integration. He can guide the detonations, ensure precision. That's impossible. Full integration kills humans within a year. I'm looking at him right now. He's functional, articulate, and he's volunteering. Even if we believed you, we can't divert the October mission. It launches in 11 days. We'd need weeks to prepare Prometheus. I spoke up, my voice still wrong, still harmonized. You don't need to divert anything. Use the Orpheus payload. Replace the dormancy weapon with nuclear devices. The trajectory is already plotted. The launch window is already open. Just change the payload, silence on the other end. Then, give us 24 hours. Don't leave that house. We'll send someone. The line went dead. Vincent stood up, paced. They're going to kill us. Cover this up. We just told them everything. Maybe, or maybe they're desperate enough to try. I looked at Lovell. You knew this would happen. That's why you gave me the choice. You were testing me. I was giving you one last chance to be human, to choose fear, self-preservation. Instead, you chose sacrifice. That's what makes us different from the architects. They follow programs, directives. We choose. Even when the choice is terrible. The mark had spread to my brain now. I could feel architect consciousness bleeding into human neural pathways. The boundaries were dissolving. Soon I wouldn't be Dale Whitlock anymore. Just a hybrid thing. A bridge between species. But for now, in this moment, I was still enough of both to understand what I was giving up. I called my mother. She answered on the third ring. Dale, is everything okay? Hi, Mum. Yeah, I wanted to hear your voice. You sound different. Are you sick? A little. Listen, I'm sorry I haven't called more often. I'm sorry I've been distant. Honey, it's fine. You're busy. I understand. I love you. I should have said that more. I love you too. Are you sure you're okay? I will be. Tell Brian I'm sorry about the fight. Whatever it was about, tell him it didn't matter. Dale, you're scaring me. I have to go, Mom. Just remember that I loved you, that I was thinking about you at the end. I hung up before she could respond. Vincent was watching me with something like pity. The end, he said. Even if Prometheus works, I won't be coming back. Humans can't survive in architect resonance chambers. The radiation alone would kill me in hours. And the consciousness integration, it'll burn through what's left of my humanity before I finish. I'll complete the mission, save the world. Then I'll die on the moon as something that's no longer entirely human. There has to be another way. There isn't. The math is clear. The architects showed me. This is the only path with probability above 0. Lovell put his hand on my shoulder. The marks recognized each other. For a moment, I felt what he'd felt for 54 years. The weight, the loneliness, the terrible burden of knowing. "Thank you," he said, "for taking this from me, for carrying it forward. I'm sorry I waited so long to act." "You were tired, you earned your rest." They came at dawn, black SUVs, men in suits. We were taken to Houston, to Johnson Space Center, to a conference room on level 6 where a woman in a general's uniform explained the new mission parameters. 7 days to launch. I'd have 4 days of training, then isolation, medical prep, psychological evaluation. "You understand this is one way," she said. "I understand." "You understand you'll die on the moon." "I understand. Why are you doing this?" I thought about my mother, about Vincent and Lovell, about 7 billion people who would never know how close they came to extinction, about the architects dying in silence to protect a species that never asked to be protected. Because someone has to, because it's a choice, because I'd rather die trying than live knowing I didn't. She nodded, stood, extended her hand. "Then welcome to Project Prometheus, Mr. Whitlock. We launch October 14th. Mission duration, 6 hours. Expected survival time, post-mission, 0. I shook her hand. My palm left black marks on her skin. Geometric patterns. The beginning of integration. She looked at her hand, didn't flinch. "Well," she said, "I guess we'll all carry part of this now." I watched the launch from Lovell's living room, October 14th, 2024, 3 in the morning. The rocket lifted off from Cape Canaveral carrying Dale Whitlock and enough plutonium to power a small city, or save the world. The probability calculations still gave us less than 8% chance of success. Vincent sat beside me on the couch, both of us silent as the launch stream played on Lovell's old television. The mission had been announced as a routine satellite deployment. Nobody knew what was really on board. Nobody knew a 26-year-old archivist was about to die 300,000 kilometers from home. "He was a good kid," Vincent said. "He was." We lost contact with Dale 6 hours after he landed. The last transmission was garbled, harmonized voices speaking in overlapping frequencies. Then nothing. 3 days later, the seismographs at observatories worldwide detected unusual vibrations originating from the lunar surface. 7 distinct detonation signatures. Perfect spacing. Perfect timing. The architects didn't die, the energy sustained them, bought us another decade, maybe more. Nobody outside the program knew how close we'd come. That was 3 months ago. The chalk drawings on Lovell's walls have started to fade. Not erasing themselves, just aging naturally, like they're finally allowed to become ordinary again. The marks on my shoulder, the ones I got from handling Dale's hand that last day, they've stopped spreading, frozen at my collarbone, a permanent reminder. Lovell died 2 weeks after the mission. Heart failure, peaceful. His daughter found him in his recliner with a slight smile on his face. The autopsy showed the marks had finally receded from his chest, leaving only faint scars, like the architects had let him go. I visit his house sometimes. The new owners never moved in. The place sits empty, listed for sale but nobody buying. People who tour it complain about feeling watched, about hearing breathing in the walls. The realtor has started refusing showings after sunset. I still work at Johnson Space Center, still catalogue old Apollo materials. Sometimes I find things that weren't there before, new documents appearing in boxes I've already sorted, medical reports from missions that never happened, photographs of the moon's far side showing structures that official maps don't include. I don't report them anymore, just file them away, keep them safe. The government never acknowledged Project Prometheus. Dale Whitlock's name doesn't appear on any memorial. His mother thinks he's working overseas for a private contractor. Can't say where, can't say when he's coming home. She calls me sometimes, asks if I've heard from him. I tell her he's doing important work, that he's making a difference. Both of those things are true. Last week, the power went out across North America. Lasted exactly 3 minutes. When it came back on, every radio telescope on Earth detected a brief signal from the moon. Not human language, not architect frequency, something in between. The translation came through university computers before the government could suppress it. 7 words that appeared simultaneously on screens from MIT to Berkeley to the International Space Station. Thank you. We remember. Stay quiet. Keep dreaming. Tonight, the moon is full. I'm standing in my backyard in Clear Lake looking up. If I concentrate, if I let the marks on my shoulder open slightly, I can feel them up there. The architects, still watching, still maintaining their vigil, and somewhere among them, diffused through their collective consciousness, a fragment of something that used to be Dale Whitlock. He's not human anymore, hasn't been for months, but he's not entirely gone either. Sometimes, late at night when I'm falling asleep, I hear his voice mixed with theirs. Still harmonized, still strange. But underneath the alien cadence, I catch glimpses of the kid who chose sacrifice over safety, who gave up everything to buy us time. The breathing in my walls has stopped. The world continues. People go to work, raise families, argue about politics. They don't know how fragile it all is, how temporary. That's fine, that's how it should be. Some burdens are meant to be carried by the few so the many can sleep peacefully. I understand that now.